Hello, this is John Hesse of Hope Presbyterian Church. I would like to read a story from Wise Words by Peter Leithart, and the story is Ivy and the Prince. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful young woman named Ivy. Ivy loved to walk through the forest, smelling the flowers, singing with the birds, chasing the rabbits, as her long golden hair fluttered in the wind like a banner. She thought of the forest as her very own garden. Ivy's father had told her she could explore the forest as much as she wished, only do not pass through the thicket of briars at the center of the forest, he warned her. On the other side, there are many dangers. If you go through the briars, you will surely die. Ivy happily obeyed her father, since there was much to see on her side of the briar thicket. One day, when she began to chase a rabbit, the rabbit did not run away. Instead, he turned and looked directly at her. Then he spoke. "I have often seen you in the forest," he said. "You love the forest very much, don't you?" Although surprised to come across a talking rabbit, Ivy answered, "Oh yes, I love the forest more than anything." "I have noticed, though," the rabbit continued, "that you stay on this side of the forest and never go past the briar thicket. My father told me it was very dangerous on the other side, and that I should never pass through the thicket. He said if I passed through the thicket, something horrible would happen, and I would die." The rabbit nodded. He seemed sad. "What is wrong?" Ivy asked, feeling sorry for the sad little rabbit. "I'm thinking of all that you're missing because you may not go to the other side. There are many flowers that do not grow here, and many animals to play with that do not run on this side. The birds sing so sweetly there. They are a delight to the ears. If only you could go to the other side, it would bring you such pleasure." The rabbit stopped for a moment and added, "Oh, there is one way. Oh no, I should not mention it." "What?" "I should say nothing more." The rabbit began to hop away. "Oh, please tell me, please." The rabbit stopped. I should not say anything. But you said your father will not let you pass through the briar thicket?" "Yes." "Did you know that there's a way around the thicket? Perhaps you could follow me along that path. You could go to the other side without disobeying your father." Ivy frowned. The rabbit's words sounded like something her logic teacher might have said, and she never quite trusted him. "If you do not want to follow me, I understand," the rabbit said, and he began to hop off again. "You should not go to the other side, not if your father forbids it. Not if you don't want to." "Oh, but I do, I do." Ivy frowned again, stamped her foot, crossed her arms, uncrossed them, and stood thinking. After a moment, she shouted after him, "I had to think about it. Of course I will follow you. Let's go." The rabbit led her round and round among the tall pine trees until they came to the edge of the thicket. There Ivy could see colorful birds she had never imagined darting through the air, singing ever so sweetly. White and yellow and violet and scarlet flowers covered a hillside. Cuddly animals rolled and played in the thick grass. The beauty of the world beyond the thicket so overwhelmed her that she ran past the rabbit to the other side. Ivy had no sooner stepped past the briar thicket than the birds stopped singing. The flowers drooped and turned brown. The cuddly animals disappeared. She turned to ask the rabbit what had happened. There was no rabbit behind her. Where the rabbit had been was a terrifying and dreadful dragon with iron teeth and horrible sharp horns. Quickly, she tried to run, but fell in terror. She saw the dragon raise its claw to strike her. But then she saw another face, the handsome face of a young man. A golden sword flashed, cleaving the dragon's head. That was the last thing she saw. After making certain the dragon was dead, The young man looked down at the beautiful Ivy and loved her with all his heart. He raised her head and kissed her. Ivy felt his warm breath on her neck, his strong arm around her shoulder. Then, as the young man took a golden chain, thin and fine as a hair, and tied it among Ivy's tresses, bending down, he whispered, "If you ever need me, untie this chain. I will come. I will come again." But his words came too late. Ivy had already fainted away and did not hear his promise. When Ivy awoke, she was lying in bed at home. Her father was holding her hand. "Where is he?" she asked. "Who?" "The young man with the golden sword. He saved me from that terrible dragon." She shuddered. "The prince has gone to his home. He lives in a golden castle in the clouds." "When is he coming back?" "No one knows for sure." Her father said quietly, "Now, you need to rest. When you've regained your strength, I want to talk about your disobedience." "Oh, Father, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I will never do it again. Never." "You are forgiven, but you must rest. There will be time to talk later." The next day, Ivy had a fever. Her face was flushed, and her left side ached. A doctor was called, but he could find nothing wrong. "Give her a few more days' rest, and she'll be fine," the doctor said. A few days passed, but Ivy was not fine. Her fever grew worse, as if she were lit by an inner flame. The pain in her heart did not go away. She ate little. She barely slept. Whenever she closed her eyes, she could only see the face of the young prince who had saved her. She remembered how closely he had held her. She felt his breath on her cheek, and her mind filled with a strange terror of love. But all the while, she knew nothing of the golden chain tied in her golden hair. She had not heard the promise of the prince from the castle in the clouds. Whenever she awoke, she spoke of him. One night, she cried out in her sleep, "We must have lamp oil." "We must have what?" her father asked, looking up from a book. "Lamp oil! Lamp oil! The house must be lighted when he returns." Ivy sat up in bed, still asleep, though her eyes were wide open. "We must be ready for him. We cannot let him surprise us." "Yes, yes. I will make sure we have plenty of oil." Her father laid her down. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Come, my lord. Come quickly." Soon she was sleeping again. Another day, she was sitting in bed, staring at the plate of food on her lap, when without warning she jumped up and ran toward the door, scattering food and drink everywhere. "Ivy!" her father cried, wiping a stain from his shirt. "He's at the door!" Ivy's eyes were wide with fright. "Who was at the door?" "The prince from the castle in the clouds. He's returned for me. I heard him at the door. His hand was in the keyhole. He was trying to open my door." "I heard nothing," her father assured her. "There is no one at your door. Please, Father, open it and see." Her father opened the door and looked out. "No one," he said, shutting the door quietly. "I was sure he was there." She was trembling with cold and fever. "Oh, my heart is burning." She turned her thin face toward her father. "Please, Father, promise me you will search for him and tell him how I love him, how I will die if he does not come to me. Please ask him to return." "I promise." The very next day, her father put Ivy in the care of a nurse and left to search for the prince. While he was gone, Ivy's fever worsened, as did the pain in her heart. She refused to eat and wasted away to nothing. When her father returned and saw Ivy lying on the bed, he thought she was dead. In the light of the oil lamps, her skin looked as thin as paper. Her body was as frail as a doll's. Gently, he touched her hand, and her eyes quickly opened. "Father," Ivy whispered, "did you find him?" Her father was crying. "I searched everywhere. I asked everyone I knew, everyone I met, but I could not find him. They asked him why I was searching for him. They told me he's not here, that he's gone back to his castle in the sky. I am so sorry." Ivy's eyes closed. A tear rolled down her face onto the pillow. As her father stroked her hair, he felt something tangled there, curiously. He looked closer and discovered a golden chain, as thin and fine as hair. He untied it and held it up to the light. Suddenly, the young prince burst through the door. At first, Ivy's father thought he was a thief. He was so startled he fell over backwards, and another one of Ivy's uneaten dinners splattered on him. The prince bent over Ivy's side, touched her hand, and breathed on her cheek. "My dearest, arise," he said, in a gently commanding voice. For a moment, Ivy did not move. Her father watched breathlessly, ignoring the stains on his new shirt. He saw her hand tighten on the prince's. He saw her lips move in a silent prayer of thanks. Her tear-filled eyes opened, and she saw her prince face to face. Her heart broke with pain and joy and the terror of love. "My lord, what am I to you? I am only a skeleton," Ivy whispered. "You are better than 10 men to me," said the prince. Weak as she was, Ivy sat up and held him as her tears flowed, and her fever left her at that very hour. Soon after, Ivy married the prince, and they went to live in his golden castle in the clouds. There he gave her a garden for her very own. It was filled with flowers, birds, and animals. But there was no more briar thicket. Ivy and her husband had many beautiful children, and they lived happily ever after. The moral: hope deferred makes the heart sick, but desire fulfilled is a tree of life. From Proverbs 13, verse 12. And thank you very much.